Good afternoon, investigators. Welcome along to episode 305 of Spy Curious, where Casey and I are coming to you from the Gold Coast, where we've just had a tropical cyclone Alfred. How did you go in that, Casey?
Yeah. West of here.
Yeah. How long was your power out, Case?
Only 5 days.
Only 5. That's not so bad. Okay. Yeah, so we've got basically people, the song There's Got to Be a Morning After going through our head here on the Gold Coast, because that was the theme song of the Poseidon Adventure back in 1970. And basically it's been a pretty hectic few days here, and I'm sure it was in Kingscliff and Byron Bay and all around other areas of northern New South Wales and Queensland as well. Please say hello if you're around in the chat. I think I've got someone saying hello. Thanks, guys. G'day, Michelle. Great to see you.
Queensland government have an initiative similar as well. So
really,
yeah,
my power never went out. Oh,
well,
I'll leave it to you, Kate. So I'll stop interfering. G'day, Andrew. Great show over at Investigations Uni today, mate. Well done. That was very professional. Really well done. Yeah, you hit the nail on the head with that one. I'll talk a little bit more about that later. G'day, Jai. Great to see you, mate. Thanks for checking in. Thanks for checking in, Michelle. G'day, Nenad. Great to see you, mate. Thanks for checking in. I'd really like to thank Casey for, I don't know how she did it. G'day, Amber. Great to see you. I don't know how Casey did it, but last week we couldn't do Investigations Uni or Spy Curious, and it was lots of fun. If you haven't seen the program or you haven't got the link to it, Casey interviewed Laurie and sorry?
Ellen.
Sorry, Ellen, I apologise for that. It was great fun, lots of lovely smiles. It's what investigation industry is all about. Look at those beautiful smiles. Great to see. So that was last week. Casey did that just prior to the cyclone hitting, did it very professionally. I don't know how she did it, because I certainly couldn't have done it. Just an update, people, here at AirLap with the Australian Security Academy Spy Curious Investigations Uni. I've typed it incorrectly because I did it very early this morning, but we now have 1,181 members of the Academy of Investigation Risk and Loss Adjusting Professionals, making us the largest investigation professional industry association in Australia and the only one that meets weekly. I'm really proud of that. I'm really proud of the support from everyone throughout this. You all know who you are. You watch every week and say hello, and you give us feedback on it and suggest things. And I'd like to thank our trainers, everybody that's been involved with that. It's an incredible figure to have members of an investigation industry association. It gives us political clout as far as licensing issues around Australia, because if we didn't have the numbers, they'd never listen to us. And if you didn't know already and you weren't aware of it, that they do at licensing authorities watch this program. So here's the Victorian Police Licensing Regulation Division listening to our program. Now, I know you think that's fake. It will make it look more realistic. Here's the investigation Licensing Regulation Division Police with their Friday donuts listening to our program, and they tune in every week and listen to it. They need intelligence on what's happening in the industry, so they go to the place that has intelligent information. We were looking over in Investigations Uni today at people that rip off the system, and it's very hard for you to understand that, because you're not dishonest. You're an honest person, and you don't think like they do. And this is a real little charmer here. Went to court this week. She was convicted of rorting $100,000 from the National Redress Scheme for Historical Sexual Abuse. She was coaching her then boyfriend on what to say because of her experience through the court and correctional facility system, where she learned it. She was coaching him on what to say, and they got their $100,000 and blew it straight away. They got it, and she was convicted of it. Now, the court said she has to pay it back. and he has to pay back his share. And I don't think we'll all hold our breath on that, because they're con artists. You can sue me for saying that, both of you, but the court said you are. And basically, that's how people that rip off these things that are there for genuine victims who are abused, and they get it and then go and blow it, for their own use or whatever. Interesting, while we're talking about Cyclone Alfred and that happening this week and the disruption it caused, there's been a lot of damage on the Gold Coast. The Hilton Hotel, I don't know if you saw that case, that caught fire last night around about 2 a.m. They don't know what caused it at this stage, but there's obviously going to be ongoing damage from the impact of that cyclone. But the courts in Southport on the Gold Coast shut down this week because they had no air conditioning. So the magistrate, she's presiding over cases Monday, Tuesday and Wednesday in a singlet. She's not wearing her judge robes. She's wearing a singlet because it's too hot. And she said to the court, look, it's absolutely too hot for me to officiate. And they cancelled the court yesterday and today because there's no aircon. This is on the Gold Coast. And this is something I really want to emphasise. This is Mike Evans, I told you so a moment. Here we go. There are a lot of moving parts that go into any given day in the court system, and the court staff do an incredible job to keep a dynamic environment on track. He said a cyclone is just another of the many variables they have to deal with. Many court staff have shown up to work at their own homes without power, blah, 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 blah. But they're saying it's a dynamic workplace. There's a lot of, gears kicking into the furnace here and that sort of thing. And this is what I emphasised a couple of weeks back in Investigations Uni. Workplaces are an incredible furnace of activity. Now, in my workplace, I look at the clock and I have cups of tea and go to lunch, and Casey and Pat and Ian, they do all the work, right? And they're going flat out. The cyclones are coming and they're working flat out. They're keeping the thing moving. And, once, I think I had a couple of emails once, nearly killed me and almost put me in a stress claim, but they're keeping that dynamic environment, like that court, moving. That doesn't have to be a court. It could be a tyre repair factory. Every business is an absolute dynamic furnace of activity. That's why it exists. And I was pointing that out because you will see people in the workplace who are trying to rip it off with fake workers' compensation claims or steal from it or whatever they're doing, like our historical sexual abuse system people who ended up in a court somewhere in Queensland, and this one shut down because the aircon doesn't work. But what I was saying during that is everybody's saying, how much work they do and what they do. And I put up an image of myself on the cross, on the crucifix, about, my pain and my suffering and all that sort of thing, pointing out that 2% of problematic people put themselves on the crucifix and blah, 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 and in the workplace, blah, blah, blah. And Casey's advice to me all the time was, Michael, get down off the cross. We need the wood for the fire. Okay, which is pretty harsh. I mean, really, that's harsh. But her football team lost to my football team last night, so I win anyway. So that court thing is a furnace of activity. A workplace is a furnace of activity. You'll find that there will be people you interact with. There are 2% of problematic people that cause issues in the workplace, push every boundary, and then claim victimhood on the crucifix of the workplace. What we're saying as investigators, well, what their workplace is saying is, get down off the cross, mate. We need the wood for the fire. We've got too much going on here. And the court at Southport emphasised that this week. Down in Tasmania, in Investigation News, Consumer Affairs have asked for consultation for the continuation of licensing in Tasmania. Now, every 10 years, they review this, and this week they put it out. They want your input, if you're a Tasmanian licensed investigator like myself, into changing the system in Tasmania. Now, they only do it every 10 years. The last time they did it was 2015. And people come to me and say, oh, nobody told me about these changes that are happening in Tasmania. Well, Consumer Affairs did. All right. It's really, really important. They I know who that was. It's really important that they get feedback from people who've been through the system. Now, I've seen people go through the system recently that have just been totally confused by it in Tasmania, and they want change, and we're working on it. And thanks for your support, Andrew. Thanks for working for me for the last time today too, Andrew. I really appreciate that. G'day, it's great to see you, mate. Thank you. Thanks for tuning in, buddy. Thanks for letting us know you're watching. So they do consult. Those of you that have been watching my social media this week would have seen that I was absolutely accused of bringing in changes in Victoria to the licensing system in Victoria that were detrimental to the incomes of surveillance subcontractors in Victoria. It was me who did it. And I was asked several questions about me doing it and why I did it. And I was stunned. My file in the Victorian Police Licensing Regulation Division is the largest one they've got.
I wish we had that power of the
I am no friend of theirs. No new person in the LRD can read my file because it's too big. It's going to take 3 years, and apparently I influenced them to bring in changes in Tasmania, in Victoria, to the system down there where you have to get this to be a licensed security business in Victoria. This was all my fault. So I this in to screw the incomes of surveillance subcontractors in Victoria. Apparently, I didn't know I had. What I'm doing actually is providing that qualification to people who want to continue as investigators in Victoria, 1,600 of them that do. And they can, if they want to do it, they can. I'm not holding a gun to anyone's head, but it's the Licensing Regulation Division and VISIAC, who are much bigger. And although, you know, I might fancy that I'm a pretty big deal in investigations in Australia, and I'm not, they do not listen to me. They do not take guidance from me. What I do is I provide the capacity for you to study or RPO that qualification. Over and above that, what Casey and the Australian Security Academy do is provide the standard operating procedures for compliance with security business in Victoria, free with it. We also supply the security risk assessment forms for circumstance investigators, free with it. We also supply the surveillance risk assessment forms that you're going to have to be doing 24 hours before you do a security activity, including investigation, surveillance or circumstance in Victoria, with the qualification required for it. So I've got no explanation for how I came to be the person that initiated all that. Really, personally, I agree with Jackie Chan that people, look, you shouldn't do that in relation to blaming me for something that I have no control over. Okay, so that's my little lecture this week. We've got lots of job opportunities in our Facebook page. You can jump over to this Facebook page to see our job opportunities. I have an employer in New South Wales who's looking for an Australian Security Academy graduate students. No experience is necessary. That employer wrote to me yesterday afternoon and said their entire workplace are Australian Security Academy graduate students. They know that they were trained highly. They had to do their statements and records of interview and their reports to get them past Pat Flynn, and that was no easy task, and they probably had, like everybody else, 3 or 4 goes at it, and they respected that because they have clients and they have work and they want more investigators. So if you are an Australian Security Academy graduate student in New South Wales and you're looking for abundant work in workers' compensation investigation and code of conduct investigation, send me an email with your resume and I will pass it on to that employer, who will be in contact with you within 2 days. Even though they're so busy they don't have time to do that, they look forward to hearing from you, and they want to engage you in their workplace because they have a very successful system. And don't listen to the gloom and doom in Victoria. There are investigation agencies out there that are thriving and need investigators in Victoria and New South Wales. My voice has run out. What have you got for us this week, Case?
I have one of my favorite tools, and it is whois.com/whois. So if you are doing a investigation and you have someone's website that you can look into, this is a fantastic tool to find extra kind of pivot points if you need them, or even if sometimes you might have an email at the end of an email from someone that you don't know who it is and you would like to know who it is. This is a fantastic way to have a look at that. So if you just go to whois.com and then make sure it's /whois, because that way you can have a look at the information. So usually I save doxing myself for our more private shows, but that's okay. I don't, this information isn't up to date anymore, but I can show you the information that it shows you. So I looked up the Australian Security Academy, and as you can see here, it's got the registered contact, and that's me. That's my name there. And the registrar information is Education Services Australia Limited. So that's a company, because we are an education facility, we have the .edu.au, and you have to use your RTO number and registration to be able to do that. So if you are in law enforcement, you can easily speak to them and get more information from them. Obviously, if you're not law enforcement, you don't have those kind of powers, so you can't. But if you are in government investigation or in the police, you can. So that's just two really great pieces of information there. We have the name of a person. We have an organization, which is Australian Security Academy, Pty Ltd. That's something that you can run through ASIC, and register information. So a company that you can actually call up and get extra information from. And then I thought I would also just put through Quick Look, which is my website, to see what information comes up. And as you can see here, not only does it have Casey Lee Pine, it has my full name there, but it's also got Casey Evans, which is my maiden name. So we have a maiden name there. Maiden names are always a fantastic pivot point, because people are getting married and divorced all the time and switching around names, and being able to, if you couldn't find social media under Casey Pine, then you would go and start searching Casey Evans. That's a maiden name. So, or a married name. So you would go and look for that instead. So that's a fantastic piece of information. Oops, it is. I'm going ahead of myself. And you can also, if you look down the very, very bottom, I mean, this is something that you can easily look up on the ABN website, but it has my ABN there. So it just saves us. Like if you're looking at that information, it's like, oh, yeah, cool, there's an ABN. And then you run that through the ABN lookup, which shows Casey Lee Pine. Yep, that's her name. It also has a postcode, which is always really great if you're trying to do a locate. That's narrowing down to an area. So we have Queensland 4212. And then you've got a business name, which is fantastic, because then that goes to show that there's going to be ASIC information. So you click on that Quick Look. It'll take you to ASIC, and boom, right there, you've got Quick Look, which is registered. and 34 Ellen Grant Drive, Willowvale, which was my actual address. So if you were looking for me, you've found me. Well, not anymore because I don't live there anymore, which is why I'm happy to dox myself here. But that was my address, and that was right there in that ASIC document. And then if it's not there, say I've updated it to my accountant's address, or I've put a PO box there, the historical address would be in ASIC data, which you can pay for historical ASIC records. It's about, I think it's $10 for the full current record and $20 for the historical record, which would show the historical. Say I realize, oh my goodness, my address is there, I'm going to change that to my accountant's address or a PO box or whatever. It would still come up in the historical data. So you can purchase that historical data for like $20 and get more information there. So just a really, really handy tool, and it's just to show what kind of threads you can pull out to get information that's readily available and open source on the internet. So that is Whois, and you just copy paste the domain name into there. And as you can see, we got a whole bunch of information, and now you guys know where I used to live. So, and that's all open source. So that's the fun of open source intelligence, and that is the seriousness of the information that you can find. So suggest you put your own domains in and check out your own ASIC data and see what you can find.
I'll do it straight away after I enroll the 3 people that have enrolled during this program in Australian Security Academy courses. Oh dear. Very good tip, Casey. Thank you very much. People, if you missed it, Andrew Baldock's presentation today on Friday Investigations Uni, it was a beauty. Really interesting one about red flags in instructions and documentation, what's missing and what you're going to have to pursue. Get over and have a look at it. There will be CPD available on that in the coming months, and we will show that. Speak to neighbours. Actually, you go and speak to Casey's neighbours. I was looking and trying to get rid of some of my Facebook groups that I'm in, and Casey's old address Facebook group came up, and some interesting stuff going on in Casey's old local area Facebook group last night. So they're a wealth of information. Now, all our surveillance operatives, they join every local Facebook group, so they know what's going on locally. So always handy, those things. Here, we've got a question, I think.
Yeah.
Yep, we've got a general question. Here we go. All private investigators required to have a New South Wales Security Master Licence for an interstate equivalent to work as a private investigator. Question, Nina. In New South Wales, you are required to have a 2E investigator licence and a master licence. Yes, that's in New South Wales. In Tasmania, you're just a private investigator licence unless you want to employ other people. Then you've got to get their equivalent of a New South Wales master licence, and that's the same in every other state. But in New South Wales, whether you employ someone or not, you've got to have both. That's their system. You can get a 1-year master license. I think it's going to cost you less than $250. Now, I haven't checked that for 2 years because I've got a 3-year license, so I don't know. Now, that might be $275 for a 1-year master license. The cost of it is not crippling, but yes, in New South Wales, you do. In Queensland, no, you don't. All right, do not have to. In South Australia, you don't have to unless you employ other people. Then you're going to have to get their equivalent. Okay, here we go. Michelle's right up with it. $140 for 1 year for a master license. That's pretty good. All right, so they're forcing you to do it. You do not have to have another qualification. So it's not like down in Victoria where they've said in Victoria you have to have the security business license and you have to have no if, buts and maybes right? You must have this qualification, which I'm about to bring up because I've got it somewhere so you can see it. I did have it. Here we go. You have to have, this is in Victoria. Coming in this year, you'll have to have that. Now, if you just became a new investigator in Victoria this year, you won't need it this year. You'll get it next year, right? You'll have a year or so to do it. You don't have to have it straight away. Okay, no, don't panic. Everybody relax. Okay. But that's in Victoria. You have to have this qualification and a security business license, and that's coming in as of June 2025. So you must pay for, be assessed, study and assessed as competent, have this qualification in Victoria over and above your individual license. You must have a security business license. In New South Wales, you do not need any other qualification than your 2E. And as Michelle's just told us there, $140 for 1 year for a master license. Now, you can buy a 3-year license. I think you can get a 2-year license. I'm not sure. But you can. You've got options. And I think Victoria, as they phase theirs in, everybody will have it for 1 year. All right. The information is coming out very, very slowly because it's all new to them as well. And it's coming out through the Victorian Police Licensing Regulation Division. I am in Victoria constantly. I am down there constantly over the next few months to cope with the demand for people who are getting this. There is no resistance from the people who are successful investigators in Victoria with their compliance, just like there isn't in New South Wales. In New South Wales, a 1 or 5 year license. Yeah, that's what the $140 that Michelle was talking about. Understand you do not need this info if you're working on the books as an employee. I don't know, Andrew. My reading of it is everybody's going to have it. That's my reading of it. That's the way it was explained to me at the AISP by the Victorian police officer. She was in charge of it some 5 years ago when she was talking about it. I may be totally wrong. All right. I could be absolutely wrong on that. The information is coming out slowly. I really think that everybody's going to have it. The reason they're going to have it put forward was that basically let's know who the entity is they're dealing with at the Licensing Regulation Division, because people can hide behind companies. And last year, a lady, she retired, her husband died. She got compensation of $500,000 for it. She invested it in a security company in Victoria. And the next day, the owner of that security company flew off to the Middle East and never been seen again, nor has the $500,000. They're just one example of why they're bringing this sort of thing in, as well as they're also looking at trying to prevent the complaints against licensed private investigators in Victoria, which are running 86% of the complaints against licensed private investigators in Victoria identified by the Victorian Police Licensing Regulation Division, who I mentioned before. Here they are, watching this program right now with their listening devices and headphones on, eating donuts. That's a simulation, but it's very true, right? 86% of the complaints they receive about private investigators are from domestic vulnerable customers. That means marital and relationship matters. So there are people going around unregulated in Victoria, putting in listening devices, remote control cameras, that sort of thing. It's known in New South Wales and Queensland as coercive control and stalking. In Victoria, it's known as domestic vulnerability. Interestingly, complaints about private investigators through WorkSafe and TAC are minimal, totally minimal. So the people that do genuine investigation work in Victoria, it doesn't result in many complaints to the Victorian Police Licensing Regulation Division. So that type of thing they're looking at, they're addressing domestic violence and coercive control by bringing in what they're bringing in. And if people don't like it and they want to support domestic violence and coercive control, take it up with the police. Don't tell me about it on my social media groups. That's not the platform to be broadcasting that, because we're about good news and niceness and job opportunities and success and growth in investigations. not about coercive control, actually anti that. I received a request from a domestic violence support facility 3 weeks ago about them doing a course in regards to locating listening devices and hidden cameras in their clients' homes. I was lucky enough to be able to send them one of our Spy Curious videos, which addresses that and has a technical security countermeasures expert explaining how to do that in your own home. They tested it out and tried it with a couple of their clients. They didn't find any, but they knew what to do and what to look for. Prior to that, they were all thinking of doing a course or spending a fortune on the equipment to locate that stuff. But the video we supplied them from Spy Curious, they were able to do it without cost to the government, to their organisation or to their clients if they wanted to do it and they knew how to. So they were very pleased with that episode of Spy Curious, which was made early in the pandemic period with a Australian technical surveillance security countermeasures expert who's since retired. And his business has been taken on by another Australian Security Academy student quite successfully. So that's a really good news story that came out of Victoria, where they're able to use a resource that we have here to assist them in prevention of coercive control. And I'm pretty proud of that, quite proud of that.
And just on that, Mike,
Sorry?
Just on that, coercive control will become a criminal offence in Queensland as well from May 26. So we've spoken at length about New South Wales bringing it in and what they're doing and how it works. And now Queensland are finally bringing it in. So, and they're actually looking at divorce settlements, and if there is coercive control, that the assets will be split differently. So you will be punished for coercive control, which is just fantastic.
That's absolutely, it's excellent. I'm really pleased to hear licensing authorities are on it. Police and government are on it. Support services are on it for the victims. They're not on it for everybody. Not every victim's going to receive the same support or help that they need. I fully appreciate that, but at least something is being done. And that's really satisfying and really pleasing to see. With that, people, thank you for watching. I hope you've enjoyed Casey's informative tip today on how to find out who's been looking for you. That was really interesting, Casey. I hope you enjoyed Andrew's presentation, Investigation Journey. People, get over there and watch it. Don't miss out. That's a good one. It's a really good one. It applies not just to workers' compensation, but to other instructions for investigations that you do. We'll be back next week with episode 306 of Spy Curious. Thanks, Case. We'll see you then, people. If I can find my video.
Have a great weekend, everybody.
Hope the weather's better than it has been in New South Wales and Queensland.